A chief judge of the federal court announced in a hearing that he believed that Donald Trump was purposely delaying the investigation of his criminal case, including at the grand jury proceeding process, in order to have it intersect with the election cycle and avoid prosecution altogether. That in new reporting in an unsealed transcript made public by the work of Politico that I can report on here. I'm Michael Popak, Legal AF, and the Midas Touch Network. Let me break it all down for you. There was a hearing. We believe it was in in 2023, in March of 2023, but it just became public today, the transcript. And in that hearing, presided over by the chief judge of the DC courts, federal courts, who presides over all things grand jury, that's where witness testimony is developed in a criminal case. They held a hearing about the testimony that was being subpoenaed and brought before the grand jury by two leading aides of Mike Pence. This has to do with the prosecution's theory of the case in the indictment that we know of in the DC election interference case, that Donald Trump and the people around him were using a pressure campaign against the vice president in order to have him not certify the election on Jan 6th and throw it over to the states, which would have meant a Trump victory, stealing the election away from Joe Biden. The two witnesses that were at issue in this hearing, one, Mark Short, the other, Greg Jacobs. I'll talk about both and what we know about their testimony that ultimately happened, both from the Jan 6 committee and other reporting. But here, during this particular hearing, which I will admit, I would say 2/3 of the pages look a lot like this, blacked out. But we were able to get several pages of commentary by the judge at this particular hearing. And at this hearing, Trump's lawyers argued for a 2-week delay, saying we need 2 weeks so we can sort out all of these things. Now, the prosecution had made the argument that when you give Donald Trump more time, two really bad things happen. Two really deleterious things happen. One, he has time to try to obstruct justice and interfere and tamper with witness testimony because it gives him more time to work the phone and have his proxies talk to these people and scare them away from testifying. The second is the natural life cycle of the investigation would time out to land very quickly right before the election, giving Donald Trump another ability to delay or avoid prosecution altogether. And this was on the minds of Chief Judge Boasberg. Here's what he said on page 33 of the 38-page transcript. In terms of irreparable harm, I think it is telling that there was a 2-week delay. And I understand from the lawyer that's in the room for Trump, that there are other pieces of litigation that Trump is involved with. However, he's not indigent. In other words, he's not poor, and it's not that he can't afford lawyers. In fact, there are 4 different law firms on the pleadings regarding the motion to stay. So I think that with 4 law firms that he could have gotten something filed within a far shorter time period than 2 weeks. Here's what he says. He says that because he's giving them about 48 hours. Which he believes is sufficient time. He said, the special counsel's investigation is moving quickly. This is in 2023. There is an imperative that it moves quickly, Judge Boasberg said on the top of page 34, particularly so as not to interfere with the 2024 election cycle. Oh, was Judge Boasberg right? So when the former president's pleading says that there will be a nominal impact from a delay, the 2 weeks to delay Mark Short and Greg Jacobs and others testifying before the grand jury, I think that is a vast understatement. The judge continued that there would be a serious and deleterious impact from a delay, and that harms the public interest, which is in a speedy resolution that considers all relevant information. So he gave them less than 48 hours, which is what his predecessor, Beryl Howell, who used to be the chief judge, she also only gave Donald Trump short windows of time, not to prepare all of his papers for an appeal, but to run to the appellate court and get a stay to prevent witness testimony if there's a legitimate grounds to do so. But listen to those chilling prophetic comments by Judge Boasberg. that the case would intersect with the election cycle, which was obviously his plan. It's been called out by federal judges at every turn that Donald Trump is just trying to delay for delay's sake in a dilatory way in order to avoid the inevitable and try to win an election. And that's not consistent with the rules of our public justice system, that things happen speedily. You get indicted in public, you get convicted in public or acquitted in public, all of that. So as a kid, I loved eating cereal. But as an adult, I don't want all that sugar, and most cereals don't give me the protein I need. Then I found Magic Spoon, a nostalgically delicious cereal that tastes just like my childhood favorites, but without the sugar and with a ton of protein. And if you're already a Magic Spoon fan, I got big news. Magic Spoon has turned their super popular cereal into high-protein treats that are light, crispy, and taste just like those classic crunchy cereal bars. Magic Spoon's brand new treats are so delicious, they've already become my favorite before and after gym snack. Every serving of Magic Spoon cereal has 13 grams of protein, 0 grams of sugar, and 4 grams of net carbs, so you can feel good about what you're eating. The most popular flavors are fruity and cocoa, and there's so many more. Magic Spoon's brand new treats are crispy, crunchy, airy, and an easy way to get 11 grams of protein on the go. And for the first time ever, Magic Spoon treats are available in grocery stores with delicious flavors like marshmallow and chocolatey peanut butter. My favorite is Magic Spoon's chocolatey peanut butter treats. And by the way, they're my wife's favorite too. They're our favorite late night snack. Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/legalaf or look for Magic Spoon in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/legalaf for $5 off. Magic Spoon, hold on to the dream. Let me now talk about what was the issue that was teed up that day in this particular hearing. Because Mark Short and Greg Jacobs are very, very important to the prosecution, and they have already testified. The 48, you might be wondering, what happened to the 48-hour period that Judge Boasberg gave to Donald Trump to go run and get a stay from the D.C. Court of Appeals? They both failed. Both Short and Jacobs, who had testified before the Jan 6 committee, testified to the grand jury. And I'll give you the big picture. Greg Jacobs is the lawyer for Mike Pence, who had to fight back. It was the firewall to protect our democracy, to guide Mike Pence to understand that he did not have the power and the authority to reject the certification of the duly elected and certified votes for Joe Biden on Jan 6th. His job was only ministerial. He could not reopen the floor, do an examination, recognize the fake elector certificates, or just throw his hands up and throw it over to the House for a vote state by state that would have went for Trump for president. Now, he was reinforced with his belief because he went out, Greg Jacobs, and got outside counsel to advise Mike Pence, and it's somebody well known to the Midas Touch Network and on Legal AF, because I've interviewed Michael Ludig, Judge Ludig, a number of times, and he's the one that told Mike Pence, you cannot do this. I am a constitutional scholar, a former federal judge, appellate judge, and I'm telling you, a Republican, a Federalist Society member, the founder of the Rule of Law Society. You cannot do this. You have a ministerial act only as the president of the Senate to certify the election. That's all you have to do. That's all you can do. Now, Greg Jacobs and Mark Short, a chief aide to the Vice President Pence at the time, were also in the room with Donald Trump when John Eastman, who of course has been indicted in various places, including Georgia and Arizona, he's that half-baked, half-cocked constitutional scholar who came up with the fake elector scheme along with Ken Chesborough. And John Eastman presented his master plan of have Pence delay the certification to give them more time to litigate in the courts and get to the Supreme Court. But even in response to a question from Greg Jacobs, he said, who do you think on the Supreme Court's going to buy this your constitutional analysis that no one's ever bought before? He said, he said, I think we'll lose. Yeah, Eastman actually said that because Jacobs testified to this. I think we're going to lose. I think if we have one vote, maybe two, and you know who that is. That's Clarence Thomas and maybe Alito. He said, other than that, no, this is going to be a loser. So Greg Jacobs threw up his hands and said, what are you even talking about now? He had email exchanges with John Eastman where he basically said, told him off and said, I can't believe you're giving this advice to the president of the United States and advising my client, the vice president, to commit an act of treason. I mean, effectively. That was Greg Jacobson. That's who this hearing is about. Mark Short also had a chilling set of testimony. We know it from the Jan 6 committee. He told at the time, before Jan 6th, he told the head of the Secret Service detail for President Trump, that he is sure that at some point Trump is going to turn on Pence and use social media to do it and try to put a pressure campaign on Mike Pence in order to have him not certify the election. And that is exactly what happened with the tweets when they started chanting, "Hang Mike Pence" in the halls of Congress, as he slipped out the back door, barely avoided the Jan 6th mob. This is all in other aides reporting, when they went to Donald Trump during that, 287 minutes of dereliction of duty in the White House dining room. And they said, they're calling for Mike Pence's head. But, and they said, yeah, they should. That's what happens when an election gets stolen, Trump said. Well, don't worry, we have him in a safe place. And Trump responded to another aide, who cares? He's a P word. He called him a pussy. Right? We know that from other testimony. He told Mike Pence in person that, he didn't have the balls. He didn't have the courage to do the right thing here. Where Mike Pence told him, I have a constitutional duty I'm sworn to uphold. I don't have the authority and the power that you're telling me. So Short and Jacobs gave, I'm sure, amazing testimony consistent with their Jan 6 testimony to the grand jury. But now we have that secret transcript that we've been able to detail. And boy, was Jeb Boasberg right. This should be now cited by the special counsel in other proceedings every time Donald Trump seeks a delay, because Donald Trump caused the very delay that he says he's being prejudiced by, right? 8 months, the DC election interference case didn't go anywhere because of Donald Trump. And of course, that ate up the clock and moved his prosecution into the window in the box of the election cycle. And then he had the argument about the election cycle. And this was all predicted by Jeb Boasberg, Chief Judge of the District of Columbia. Great reporting by Politico, great work by them as exercising their First Amendment right and the freedom of the press to obtain this transcript directly from the court after a firefight. That's what happens. And I've talked about, I'll end this hot take this way. I've talked about it in the past. Things are redacted initially to protect certain principles, certain issues, certain balancing tests between what is right for the criminal defendant and what is right for the government and what is right to protect witnesses. It's a balancing test. And over time, things can get unredacted in public filings because everything gets filed in the public. So that whole appendix that we just got our hands on, right, that went on for 3,000 pages or whatever it was, half of it, 80% of it redacted, it will over time be unredacted. I'll be able to do reporting just like this one as the black tape gets ripped off of various pages. And it's the media, right? Not the enemy of the people, the media exercising their appropriate First Amendment freedom of the press that keeps the courts honest and pushes back with tension against the court's natural instinct just to put black on everything, and try to get more into the public domain so that we know more, especially before the election. So until my next hot take, until my next content here on the Midas Touch Network or on our new Legal AF YouTube channel, Legal AF MTN, look for it. I'm Michael Popak, and I am reporting. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.